Right. I'm not sure where the video cut off from previously, but I was talking about the new Victoria adaptation, which was on British TV for the past sort of 7 weeks. Um, I'm not sure if it's coming overseas or whether it's been shown. I'm sure it will be because it was a hugely successful show over here. I'll just wait for a few more people to come back online and rejoin us before I start talking about that. Right, so I'm just typing in chat that I'm back online, and we'll just wait for a few more new viewers. Okay, so we are back online and just waiting for some more viewers. Hello, Nancy. So Nancy's back. Can you see me properly, Nancy? Nancy, if you could be as kind to tell me where it cut me off. So what was I talking about when it cut me off? Because I didn't notice that it had cut off. The technology is being very bad tonight. Oh no, so Nancy just lost me again. Oh, and now I'm back. So I'm back, I'm off, I'm on, I'm off. Hopefully I'll stay on now for the rest of the chat. So please, Nancy, could you tell me where it cut me off from before? So what was I talking about when it cut me off? Okay. Had I spoken to you about Victoria, the TV series? Okay, so I'm just waiting for some of our viewers to rejoin. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start talking about Victoria, which is the ITV British series. I'm not sure if it's been shown overseas yet. I'm sure it will be because it was hugely successful over here. It's been recommissioned for a second series. It was about 8 or 9 episodes long, and it was about Queen Victoria, and it followed Queen Victoria from when she first came to the throne, all the way through to her marriage to Albert, and it concluded with her having her first child, who she named Victoria, Princess Victoria. It was a really amazing series. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The majority of it was very accurate. Obviously, it was dramatised for TV, so you have to give it a little bit of an artistic license to make it work. Obviously, they can't cover everything in complete detail, but I was very, very impressed with the show. I would highly recommend it, and I'm so excited it's back for a second series and a Christmas special. So I bought the book off Amazon that goes with the series, and it's called Victoria, the Victoria Letters, and it's all about the TV show. And of course, this is the lady who plays Victoria, Jenna Coleman, and she did a really good job portraying a young Queen Victoria. And it's a really good book, and it shows lots of Victoria's letters as well. So it's a very good read. I haven't read all of it yet, I've not had time, but it's quite a nice book to just flick through. So here we see a really lovely picture from the show of Queen Victoria on horseback. Loretta says she lost me at the Royal Cookbook. I think I spoke quite a lot since the Royal Cookbook part, so I'm not sure what I've got to re-go back over and talk about. But this is definitely a really good book to buy if you've seen the TV series. So if you get a chance to look at the TV series, this is the book that goes with it, and it's really, really good. So what I was saying for Loretta about the cookbook was that I might choose to do one of the recipes one day. I'm not going to say for definite, but it's an idea that I could do, and I could film myself trying to recreate a royal recipe. So if you'd like to see that, that's an idea that I could do. Okay, I'm back on. I'm not sure what happened. The app just timed out and kicked me out. So I'm back. Hopefully you can all see me again. I seem to be having lots of technological trouble tonight. I really do love it when technology just works how you want it to work. So hopefully you can all see me again and I haven't lost everyone all over again. So Freya says, I came late too. Did you like the Victoria series? How do you think it compares to other Victoria series? I liked it. I thought it was very standalone on its own. And if you've seen the British series Downton Abbey, it was very much Victoria meets Downton Abbey. So you had the characters followed obviously the main characters, Victoria and members of the royal family, but it also followed her staff, so her servants, very much in the similar way they did on Downton Abbey. So if you liked Downton Abbey, where you have the upstairs and the downstairs, it incorporates that too. So you got to follow the stories of the staff and their relationships and what they got up to, and how that ties in with how they serve the royal family. So that was really good concept that they had. This is a companion book to the series, which I would recommend if you've seen it, and I really hope it gets broadcast elsewhere in the world, because it was really amazing. And I'm glad it's been recommissioned for a second series and a Christmas special for 2017. So I'm really looking forward to that. And for me, it's very much replaced Downton Abbey. So I'm not sure if any of you have watched Downton Abbey, but it's very much like that, but with Queen Victoria. So highly recommended. Please watch it if you can. Do we have any other questions? For those of you who have just joined, I'm here to answer any of your questions live. Please say hi or type your question in the chat box, which should be down there below on your screen. So do I have any further questions? And if you've just joined us and you're wondering what we've been talking about before, we talked about the Royal Canadian Tour, and I also asked about the Queen's new portrait. So I did a video on that, and if you watched the video, please let me know what you think about her new portrait. Do you like it? I also showed the Royal Cookbook, which I have, and I spoke about introducing a new video format, which is the pictures sort of set on a slideshow to music, but it's not just that video on its own. I would also do a commentary video to go with it, so it's more of a companion video for when there's lots and lots of pictures and you might just want to chill out and not really be in the mood for learning anything. And we also talked about my idea for Christmas, and I have a royal tree at Christmas, and I've got lots of decorations that I bought from the Royal Collection shop, and if you'd like to see them, I could make a video about that. Freya says, is Prince Harry single? As far as I'm aware, yes, there is nothing, he hasn't had anyone that's been revealed in the press. So yes, as far as I'm aware, he is single, but he's also still house hunting. Now, I did notice that the house that he had been looking at previously, which I did the video on, which was called Waterhall, has now gone under offer. So he may have bought that one. So let's hope he has. Loretta says, back again. Hi, let's hope we don't lose each other again. And also what happened in the previous week was Princess Diana's old car, her convertible Audi, has gone up for auction. So anybody who wants to own a piece of Princess Diana's personal property, of which she actually drove the car, it was going up for auction. I'm not sure if the auction has actually taken place yet, but when I find out, I'll try and report on who bought it if those details are released, or how much the car fetched. Freya says, what do I think of Prince Edward becoming Duke of Edinburgh? Will it happen when Charles becomes king? Basically what happens is Edward was sort of muted for the title of the Duke of Edinburgh, which is why he didn't receive a ducal title when he married, as usually is the practice. So he chose his own title, which was the Earl of Wessex, which is just a slightly lesser title than a ducal title. So obviously that being earmarked for him, he would obviously have to wait until the death of his father. I mean, obviously no one likes to talk about the death of a relative, especially when you're acquiring something of theirs, but when it comes to titles, he has been muted for that. So what would happen is that the Duke of Edinburgh's title upon his death would revert back to the crown, and then that title would be redistributed by the monarch. So let's say that the Duke of Edinburgh died before the Queen. It would go back to the Queen, and then the Queen could then give that back out to Edward. And the reason why that would have to happen is because it's always the eldest son that inherits. So technically that title would go to Charles. Now Charles could pass that up and obviously give it back to the crown, which is what I think will happen, and then that will be redistributed. Probably within the Queen's lifetime. If she didn't do it while she was alive, it would be up to Charles to give that title, but I don't think that's likely to happen. In the event of the Queen passing before the Duke, obviously Charles would be king when he inherited his father's title, so it would be Charles giving it out to Edward. I hope that's not too confusing, but that's basically what would happen. Nancy says, do you know which crown the Queen had on for the latest portrait? It's not a crown, it's a tiara, and it was Queen Alexandra's tiara, and I believe it looks like the Queen Alexandra's fringe tiara. And she was wearing it because Queen Alexandra had a lot to do with the British Red Cross. So she was wearing all of her jewellery in the portrait to symbolise that. So I think it was the fringe tiara. So that was a really good question. And everything in the portrait, including the bust that was in the background and the jewellery worn, was all to do with the British Red Cross. So it was a portrait very much to mark the royal family, and especially the Queen's involvement with the British Red Cross over 60 years. So whether you love or hate the portrait, it is a very important one, and it's very symbolic for her patronage of the British Red Cross over the 60-year period. Okay, so do I have any other questions? Anything you'd like to know? Anything you'd like to see in upcoming videos? Please let me know. Freya says, thank you. Back to the Duke of Edinburgh. Could you see Lady Louise and Viscount Severn finally becoming Princess Louise and Prince James when that happens? Well, actually, they are entitled to those titles. It was Edward and Sophie who expressed an interest to style them as the son and daughter of an earl. Under letters patent issued, I think by George V, they are actually entitled as a direct ascendant through the male line of Queen Elizabeth to actually be Prince or Princess. Now, I'm not sure when they're older whether they will be offered that. They may be, or they may choose to just stay as they are. I very much think it will probably be a personal choice for them when they become of age to choose. So I suppose the theory behind it is that they become less unburdened by having that title. Very much in the same way that Zara and Peter Phillips were less burdened by their royal background than what Princes William and Harry were. So I can see some logic in it, but also I think it's very much, if they're entitled to it, should they get the choice to choose. Zara and Peter Phillips weren't entitled to it because they are direct descendants through the female line, and that was another thing that was expressed in the letters patent, I think, through George V. So it's slightly different from Anne's children to Edward's children, but I do believe it will probably come down to personal choice when they become of age. And also, whoever is king at the time, whether that be Charles or William, whether it's offered. But of course, if they're entitled to it, they should be able to claim it by law, if that's what they want. Or they may just choose to stay as they are. So, good question, Freya. Thank you for asking. Do I have any other questions? Anything you'd like to see in upcoming videos? I'm also going to do, I've got a video planned about Princess Beatrice's Halloween costume. It's rather a peculiar costume, and I hope you'll enjoy the video on that. Okay, Loretta says, do I think the York sisters act spoiled? I don't think they act spoiled. I think I think you have to look at how they were brought up, where they were brought up, the way in which they were brought up, and their parents, and of course their royal connection. And you have to remember that they don't have an official royal role. They are taking on quite a lot of charity work off their own back, and it's not actually on behalf of the Queen. They do step up and act on behalf of the Queen when asked to do so, but that hasn't been on very many occasions. And I think when you look at them being spoiled, they're also trying to find their own way in life, and that's very hard when, as we said before, some of their relatives don't have royal titles and they do. And this is the part where you begin to see that having a title can burden you down. They are princesses, and of course, you wouldn't see necessarily a princess on a checkout till in a supermarket working, but yet they have no official role. So they're sort of sandwiched between a bit of a rock and a hard place. They're sort of damned if they do and damned if they don't. And I think that's perhaps one of the reasons, going back to an earlier point, why the Wessexes chose not to give their children the full prince and princess titles of which they're entitled to. So I think sometimes when people say that they're spoiled, it may be that they're just caught in a very difficult situation. And that's what I think. Okay, Freya says, do I have a favourite British, English or Scottish monarch? I think my favourite... okay, let's divide that question into living and non-living. So my favourite non-living royal would have to be Elizabeth I. I would definitely love, if I could time travel, to go back to Elizabeth I's day and witness her and experience the first Elizabethan England. So she's definitely one of my favourites. She had the classic, royal luxury sort of upbringing, and then a tragedy with the death of her mother, partial royal rejection, a power struggle, and then an independent reign. So for me, her reign was just absolutely incredible, and she's probably my favourite non-living royal. My favourite living royal, I'd probably say at the moment, is probably Prince Harry. I think he has a lot to offer the royal family, and I really enjoy following him and what he gets up to. So yeah, probably Elizabeth I and Prince Harry. Who are your favourite royals, living or non-living? Okay, Loretta says, why does the public allow it? I'm not quite sure I follow which bit of the chat that's referring to. So could you tell me which bit you think the public are allowing? Okay, Nancy says, I never realised that the parents could decide not to give their children royal titles. Do you know the history behind that? Well, I think technically they probably are a prince and a princess, but they just chose to be styled the lesser title. It's pretty much the same way that technically Camilla is the Princess of Wales. She is the Princess of Wales, but she chooses to style herself the Duchess of Cornwall, which is the lesser title held by Prince Charles. And I think it's very much in that way. So officially, when they're older, as I said before, they could just ask for those titles of which they're technically entitled to. And I think the first instance that happened was probably Princess Anne. Although by the letters patent her children weren't entitled to be, I think the present Queen was willing to issue new letters patent to say that her children could have real titles and be styled as HRH, but Anne refused. And I think that kind of set a little bit of an interesting trend. And of course, generations that have come since have looked at that model, and some have chosen to follow it. Some have chosen for their children not to be burdened by those titles. So I hope that's answered your question. Letter said George VI was dead and the Duke of York alive. I'm still not quite sure what you mean by why does the public allow it. So George VI died and the Duke of York was alive. Well, George VI was previously the Duke of York. So that title would have just gone back to the crown and been absorbed back into it, and then obviously redistributed when the Queen gave it to Prince Andrew. And that's just the way those titles kind of work. Okay, Loretta says, why does the public allow the princesses to not work? Then call them lazy. They need to find themselves. Yes, I agree. It's a very difficult situation because although they're princesses, they're not involved in any official royal work that's regular. They don't receive any income from the British taxpayer. So any money that they receive, they either have to make it themselves or they're given it by their parents. So it's very difficult. I mean, they're grown-up girls, and imagine having to be supported by your parents just to live up to the lifestyle that people think you should have. And then if they were to just say, well, we're going to be completely self-supporting and we're going to get jobs and we're going to live normal lives, and then people berate them for that, and they say, well, you're a princess, you should be living in this, or you should be doing that, or you should be wearing this. And it's a very difficult situation. They really are damned if they do and damned if they don't. And I think in that sort of situation it's very hard to find yourself. But I think they are making their way. Princess Eugenie has obviously now got her new home at Kensington Palace. And we think there's going to be obviously a marriage on the cards. So she's finding her own way, and both sisters are doing a lot more charity work off their own back. Hopefully you can see me again and I'm fully back online. I'm really sorry that the internet keeps